So today it's my great honor, my great privilege to have a wonderful artist here with us. So to me, it's a great personal pleasure as well to welcome Michel DeYoung, because we've known each other for a number of years. I believe when I was in graduate school, I think I mentioned this to you in one of our little trips in the tube in London together. I would go to New York to listen to you sing Judith in Bluebeard's Castle. I believe it was with Esa Pekka. And then to be able to work with you when I was the second conductor for Aida with English National Opera was such a great privilege. So thank you so much for agreeing to join me for this interview.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
So I have a lot of questions for you, but I want this to be as free form as possible. So we can always go and talk about any topics you'd like to talk about. But
Okay.
One of the amazing and unusual things about your incredible career is that you've been just incredibly successful performing with symphony orchestras, some of the best orchestras in the world, as well as some of the most important opera houses in the world. So from that perspective, I'd like to hear from you what you see as some of these differences of working in the concert hall versus working in the opera house.
Well, I've been what I consider very privileged, because most of my career has been concerts with 1 or 2 staged operas a year, and the combination for me is perfect. I have ultimately, I'm a musician, and I like it to be about the music, and I feel that is much more impactful in the concert world than in opera. In opera, so many things are involved. So, and it tends to be more about the production these days. So, yeah, so I really like that. And I feel so fortunate because I love the music I sing. And, I get to sing with the great conductors, including you, the great conductors and the great orchestras around the world. So, yeah, so it's fantastic. But the difference is also with opera, you have everything, you have the stage and the set and the director's ideas and so many more things going to bringing it together than it just being about making music. So that is also wonderful. I love that as well, but you also have the chance of being in a production that has nothing to do with the opera, or, they're making a political statement, or they're just trying to do something different, or whatever. And I've been involved in a lot of those, and they're disappointing. They don't feel like you're really, one of the reasons we do what we do is because we want to bring the art to the people. And then you don't feel like you're really giving that to them, in my opinion.
That's an amazing point, and it's related to one of the other questions I was planning on asking you, which is being involved in stage productions. It's very likely that many times you will not agree with what the director is asking you to do. So how have you managed throughout the years to navigate these waters? And sometimes you're able to make suggestions and influence what others are doing. Sometimes it's completely set in stone because maybe the set has been designed and built, and then there's nothing to be changed about it, and it just seems to be that it's in another galaxy, the production.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with these situations of, sometimes it's power dynamics, sometimes, you're the star of the show, so you have a lot to say about it too.
Well, if it's an old production, if you're redoing a production, you don't have a lot to say in changing things. But when it's a new production, I've been fortunate enough to be in a lot of new productions, then usually you get to have your 2 cents. You get to say, well, I don't see this, or I have had times where I've been asked to do things on stage I don't agree with. I don't think it leads to a more powerful production or the character or makes sense or anything. And in my experience, when I have said that, the directors are like, okay, and it's usually something not appropriate for stage, in my opinion. But for the most part, the production is not my job. And I feel like my job is to do the production as much as possible like the director wants. And that I know not everyone agrees with me on that, but I have always believed that. I believe that the production is the directors, the producers, it's theirs. My job is to do what they tell me to do. So it's very rare, unless it's something like if they ask me to do something, I can't physically sing it in the position they want me to be, or something like that, then even that, I've never really had a situation where if I say, wow, because I'll try anything. I'm pretty open to trying anything. I like it, but sometimes it just doesn't work. So then you have to say, yeah, I can't figure out how to make that work. So, and it's very rare you're going to get a director that's going to be, you know, a jerk about that kind of thing.
Wonderful. Now, another one of the situations at work is, you know, you've worked with some of the greatest conductors in the world, from Pierre Boulez to Daniel Barenboim, Esa-Pekka Salonen, and Michael Tilson Thomas, with whom you won another Grammy, yet one more Grammy. So what are some of your greatest memories of all these experiences? And likewise, some of the experiences that you thought were challenging?
Oh, well, you know, one thing I have to say, I realized a little bit later in my career, unfortunately, is I didn't really, it's not that I didn't appreciate it. I didn't realize how amazing everything was, that I've done really incredible things. I've gotten the opportunity, let me say it that way, to do incredible things. And when it happens, sometimes you just do it, and then you look back on it going, wow, that was amazing. And so I try to tell young singers or young musicians now, really try to live in the moment and take in what it is you're doing, because I realize that now. I love my career so much. It's something I have realized. I am a singer, and I love making music. And that's what it is for me. It's not about fame. It's not about any of that. For me, it's just about the art of music and singing. And I just want to be the best I can be. And I constantly am working on it and doing that. I think, I've had such incredible, I mean, I got to sing Les Troyens with Sir Colin Davis, you know, I mean, to sing Berlioz with Sir Colin Davis, it's just incredible. And I've done so much with Daniel Barenboim, Wagner and Mahler, I think, mostly. A little bit of other stuff, but mostly Wagner and Mahler. And Esa-Pekka, I've done tons of Bluebeards and John Adams' El Nino and Mahler 3, and I mean, you know, and then Jaap van Sweden I've done. I mean, I'm really, it sounds like I'm bragging. I'm really not. I'm actually so blessed, because I'm making music with these people, and it's just, you know, it's surreal, really. It's surreal that I get to do that. And here I am, and, you know, from Colorado, and daughter of a minister, and, you know.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. First generation American, you know, so it's
so your family is
cool.
Dutch, yes?
My parents are from Holland, yeah.
So tell me about your childhood. How was it growing up there? How did you get into music? How did it all start?
Well, I didn't start, I mean, growing up, I have 3 older sisters, and we would always, we all played the piano. We all took instruments. I've played many instruments. I played piano. I wanted to be a pianist, but I just didn't have the chops. But, and I've always had this enormous range. You know, I have a 3-octave range, which is quite large for a singer. And so I would be in every chorus, and I've always been a good musician. So I'd always be in the top choruses, whatever age I was, and I would sing whatever part they needed. You know, they need a low alto, I'd sing that. They need a high soprano, I'd sing that. And I loved it. I just loved I loved the challenge. In band and orchestra, it was the same thing. They needed an oboist. I would learn how to play the oboe. And I never knew, at the time, I didn't know this was odd. I would just go home and work on it. It's not like I would be a professional oboist, you know. I'm not, believe me. But I could play in the band or the orchestra. And anyway, so I was born in Grand Rapids, Michigan, but grew up mostly in Colorado and some in California. And so in this town called Loveland, Colorado, in northern Colorado, small town. and didn't know what I was going to do for a living. Two of my sisters had gone into teaching. One was in dentistry. And so I just didn't know. What I really wanted is to get married and have 6 kids. That was my plan. So anyway, I already had the bug to travel. So I actually went to Grand Rapids, Michigan to go to school. And while I was there, I was in the chorus, and the choir director gave me a solo, and he said, "Have you ever considered having a career in singing?" And I was like, "No." How do you have a career in singing? And so I thought it sounded amazing. I thought, wow, to do something I love to do for a living. So I talked to my parents about it, and I said, what if I try this? And when I'm 25, if nothing happens, if I have no encouragement, I'll do something different. And they supported me. They have supported me to this day. So when I was 22, I did the Met competition in LA, the Metropolitan Opera competition in LA, and I won. And I knew nothing. I had no languages. I had, I had 5 arias because my teacher told me. My teacher actually was at Cal State Northridge. He said to me, "Okay, I want you to do the Met competition this year, and I want you to get prepared because you're going to win, and they're going to ask you to be a young artist at the Met." And I said, "Kurt, I appreciate how much you love me, but I've never even done a competition. There's no way I could win this." Well, this would happen. I won every round, LA, Western region, and New York, and they asked me to be a young artist. So I left college and moved to New York and joined the program. And James Levine said, "I don't think you're going to debut while you're here. I want to keep you under wraps." But I ended up doing small roles, which was really cool, like Second Lady and Magic Flute and a Valkyrie. I did Fricka in Rheingold and things like that. And it was amazing. And then when I finished, I had agents, because when you're a young artist at the Met, the agents come find you. I had my agents already, from my world agent in New York and my European agent in England, and who I'm still with. And then I luckily got into this, a groove of Mahler for like 10 years, predominantly, and have sung full-time since. It just kind of went from there.
How wonderful. So there were a number of click moments and people who saw what you had in you and just encouraged you, "Hey, go and pursue it."
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? That's what I think. I think if you really have a desire to pursue something, try. Because so what if it doesn't work? But big deal if you never try.
Yeah. That's very, very good advice.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you a little bit. We touched a little bit on a previous question, which was about the opera and the rehearsal process. And what is an ideal scenario for you in terms of rehearsing an opera? It's quite a long process. So what have you seen really works and inspires you as an artist while you're rehearsing an opera? If you remember any particular experiences, maybe.
Well, that is a big difference between opera and concert. I'll start there and then move on, if that's okay. Concert, you go somewhere for usually a week and then do 3 or 4 concerts. You do rehearsals and then do 3 or 4 concerts and you're gone. For opera, if it's a new production, it is not unlikely that you're there for a month and a half just for rehearsals, which is both nice. That's why I like doing at least 1 opera a year, because it makes you stop for that time. You're in one place, and it can be a couple months of like in Bayreuth, it was a very long rehearsal project the whole time. And so it just depends. And then in that time, they start with it's great. It's so exciting because you start with the opening ideas and everything. And it's a role you love usually. And it's just exciting, the whole process of it and coming up, because you come with your own idea of the character. Like, for instance, Judith in Bluebeard's Castle. You come with your own idea, and then the director has their own idea, and it can be totally different. And I find that exciting. And like the first time I ever sang Kundry actually was at Bayreuth, strangely. And my my thought of who Kundry was totally different than it was. The very, very bizarre, controversial production, I will say that. And and it was so bizarre, this whole thing. But I will tell you that it opened up ideas about the role of Kundry to me that I will always have, and has changed my interpretation of her because of that, and how I look at other roles, because it was just so, you know, it wasn't just like straightforward. It was so different, all the different sides of Kundry, which Kundry is. She is like every woman throughout time because she can't die. But Judith was the same thing. I did Judith in Salzburg Festival, and it was a great production. It was Falk Struckman was the Bluebird, and I was sort of a nurse. I was in like this sexy nurse costume, which, you know, when you're 6'1" and you have really long legs, people like to use your legs. And it was interesting too. It was an interesting, disturbing production. But, you know, when you do it and you allow yourself to do it as much as possible, then you really learn a lot.
I think it's wonderful that you're so open and willing to try, and also let yourself be convinced by other ideas, even if you come with your own. It's well,
it's hard. I will tell you, I've not always had that. Like I did Tristan and Isolde at La Scala, and with Patrice Chéreau, who's just, he was so extraordinary, and it was such an extraordinary production. And it was with Waltraud Meyer as Isolde, who I love, and she was phenomenal. His thought of Brangäne was that she was very old. And so I had to go in, and they took my hair and put a bald cap on me, and then just put very thin, straight hair. And I cried. I was just like, it was so traumatic for me. So, but I did it, and I sold it, but it was not easy. So, you know, I'm used to concerts where you have your own hair and makeup and pretty dresses. But no, I really believe that is very important. I have had times in my career I have not been so open to that, and I regret that.
Wow. So it's the beauty of even being able to express yourself through ugliness sometimes, like you mentioned, having to purposely age or portray yourself in an ugly manner. And sometimes that can also come through vocally, I imagine. If you have to look ugly and look the part, then it affect the way you're singing as well.
Yeah. Well, it was bizarre because I still have quite a young sounding voice, and I had a very young sounding voice coming out of this 80-year-old woman. I think it was a little bizarre, but no, I think it's important. And I think, you know, we have to remember that's a stage character. That's not who we are. And so it's exciting, and it's really good, but it's also, I mean, you can look back and regret things, but regret is kind of a waste of time. What I'm trying to do is learn from it for my next experience. I will tell you that with conductors, it's different. In a way, I always believe, you know, when you're up there, you have to do what the conductor is going to do. But I think you have more of, like, the conductor, if he or she comes to the project with a certain idea of what they want, which I've had before, and it was not me. And they'll conduct it a certain way that I can't sing. You know, I'm not a lyric mezzo, for instance. I'm a dramatic mezzo. I have a very large voice, so I'm not going to sing like Joyce DiDonato, you know, or whatever. So that can be difficult. And if you can't come to a point where you say, okay, let's figure out how we can make this work. I have before said, I think you have the wrong mezzo. I've never been fired. I've never been released after I've said that. I will honestly say that, but I am willing to do that rather than sacrifice my integrity.
Well, that is really important, and that's surely why people also respect you and keep calling you back, because you have your integrity and you know what it is that you can do best and what fits your voice type. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, this is something we should probably talk about a little bit, since you mentioned it. It's really interesting, and some people, especially say young orchestral players, might not be aware of how different voice types can be. So could you talk a little bit about the differences, even just between a mezzo-soprano? There can be such a range of different voices.
Absolutely. Well, it, also, okay, well, to go along with that, live performance is different than a rehearsal. So I've had it before where I'm rehearsing Mahler 3 with someone and we figure out everything, how exactly we're going to do it. And then we get out on stage and something happens. For some reason, I'm nervous, or I can't calm my breath, or I can't get a breath, or whatever. You got to deal with that. And conductors have to say, okay, it's a singer. You know, that doesn't mean the singer is being difficult. Sometimes we just cannot do it. But so it's a much different thing between, you take certain roles that a lot of people will sing, and it's going to be done differently. You know, if I sing, for instance, a Verdi mezzo role, I don't, how do I say this? I don't belt. I don't sound like a man in my chest voice because I have a high C and I want to keep my high C. Right. So I don't overdevelop the low for that reason, because that will happen. But some people really like that in their Verdi. Some people want the mezzo to sound like a man in the low. Okay, I'm not the right person then, you know, and I'm okay with that. I mean, that's just a taste thing. There are other things that I can do, like sing Judith, which as I see. I think I do a lot of Zwischenfach roles. I do a lot of, which are, I sing both soprano and mezzo. I am a mezzo, but I sing both soprano and mezzo. If I sing a soprano role, it will be done differently than if a soprano does it, because a soprano has a higher tessitura than I do. So I'm going to need certain things to be taken into consideration for that. Or if somebody has a lighter voice than mine, then they're going to want to go faster and they're going to need to take more breaths. I take very few breaths. That's just how my technique is set up. I live in Colorado, a mile above sea level. I don't know. I have huge lungs. I'm 6'1". I don't know why, but I have, you know, don't take a lot of breaths. But when I do take a breath, I need a breath. And some people could just take little breaths. I'm not one of them. So it's completely how my voice is set up and everything. So all of these things have to be taken into consideration. I have worked with people before that come to a project and they have practiced it at a certain tempo. Either they've listened to it at a certain tempo, or that's how, and they cannot do it at a different tempo. And the conductor will try to go different, and they cannot follow, they don't know how to actually change the tempo. That has to be taken into consideration, because ultimately, in my opinion, it's about what the audience hears. It's not about your ego. Once you're in performance, the ego has to go out the window, and we have to create in that moment. So if someone can't do it, you got to help them. You got to help them do it, because you don't, if I'm an audience member, one time I saw a Giovanni, sorry, I was getting confused between two Mozart operas, and that Zerlina was singing her aria, and she could not go as fast as the conductor wanted it. And the conductor kept going like this, trying to get her to go faster and faster. She couldn't do it. She could not do it. She was not, I was sitting there and I watched, and I know, because I'm a singer, she could not do it. As an audience member, I wanted to puke. I was so upset about the whole thing. That isn't something we should be doing for the audience. You know, if you have a problem with someone, deal with it off stage, but not during a performance. It's a special, in my opinion, that's a special time to really give the audience, that's what they're there for, you know, to recreate the music as good as we can. I'm sorry, what?
It's just such an important point you've made about this occasional or not so occasional battle of the egos.
Yeah.
Rather than the collaboration and, you know, the role of a conductor supporting the singers so that they can shine at their best.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think sometimes singers have, you know, they come in with their attitudes. I'm not saying we don't. They have their attitudes, and then that, but still, that's not the time to have the fight.
Right.
In my opinion.
So let's talk about your colleagues. Who are some of your colleagues that you like working with the most? And I'm sure, it's difficult to name some names and leave some out, but just off the top of your head, two or three experiences of people that, maybe because they're extremely supportive, because they're collaborative, because they bring a good energy to the rehearsal process. Who are some of these people that you really like working with?
Well, my favorite person to work with is also my best friend. That's Matthias Gerna. um, I love working with him. Yes, he is one of my very close friends, but he also, I have such admiration for his artistry. I think he's such an incredible musician. So I love working. Do you mean singers or conductors?
Yeah.
Okay. I love working with him. One of my favorite people ever that I have ever worked with is Jane Eaglin. And she's also the greatest dramatic soprano I have ever heard live.
Wow.
I used to stare at her when she would sing. I was her Brangena for her first Isolde. And I literally would just be like, because I could not believe what she could do. She sang the entire role of Isolde. She could have done it again. She was extraordinary and funny and loving and just a fantastic colleagues, everything. I loved her. I love her still. Waltraud Meyer, I adore. We get along fantastic. I'm really lucky because I get along with most of my colleagues really well. I'm really quite real and down to earth. And so unless someone has an issue with me, I'm usually pretty good with them. But oh my lands, I could go on and on. It's like endless. I can't even stop.
Obviously the admiration for some wonderful voices, but also the human side is so important to be able to work well together, and that makes a lot of sense.
Oh, Stuart Skelton, he's one of my closest friends. I went to their wedding this past summer. We're like brother and sister. It really could go on and on. I truly love so many people in this business. But I'm not one that I don't care for the games. I don't care for the people that sort of, I don't want to go into them. Never mind. There's some people I don't.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it's like that for everyone, I'm sure. So next thing I want to ask about is repertoire. You've mentioned so many. I mean, you're so famous for your Wagner, your Mahler, your Berlioz, and you've and especially your Bartok as well. And you've done some contemporary opera. You mentioned John Adams, you mentioned Tandun as well. So what is some other repertoire that you'd like to explore more, or that you say, hey, I haven't done this yet and I would love to try this? What are some of these pieces?
Oh, it's interesting that you say that, because the truth is that I have really, I've been so fortunate because I've sung almost everything. I'm doing something, hopefully won't be canceled in September. I'm doing the second act of Tristan. I'm singing Isolde.
Wow.
Yeah, which I'm really excited about, with Susanna Malki in Helsinki. Oh, wow. And Stuart will be the Tristan, and Matthias Gerna is the King Mark, and it's going to be kind of exciting. I was really excited about that. I've done things like I've sung the Liebestod, I've done the third act, I've just never done the whole thing. I got to tour the immolation scene with Esa-Pekka. That was extraordinary. I would love to do that again. I loved it. I've done Dalila in concert. I've never done it staged. I would love to do it staged. It's just not done that often, I don't think. And usually they get someone really famous like Elena Garancha or something. Gosh, I can't think of anything. That's stupid. I just wasn't thinking. I'm sure there's something. I think I would like to do more Strauss. I haven't done a lot of Strauss, and I think that would be interesting.
I would love to hear that.
Yeah, I really like it. I find it quite challenging, but I love the music so much that I think that would be really, really fun.
Wonderful.
So I guess that would be my thing. I wish I could do more. I would like to do more Strauss.
That makes a lot of sense. I would love that.
Yeah.
I'm sure we would all love that. So, do you have any routines? Anything that you like doing on performance days? And or what are some of the challenges of this profession? How do you overcome them? Do you want to talk about anything related to that?
Sure. Travel is hard because, you know, as a concert singer, I can easily go to Paris for 1 or 2 concerts and fly home, or somewhere. That can be a bit challenging. But you just figure out how to do it. You know, I have a humidifier, which is a mask that you wear on the airplane, and that helps. That's incredible, both for keeping you healthy and also not dried out. It's real. I can sing the day I fly in if I wear that.
Wonderful.
I don't sleep on the plane. I never have. I am not good. I can sleep maybe an hour, even to like Asia. It's so annoying. But I just have a little bit of anxiety flying. So I've never really been good at sleeping on the plane. But, you know, all singers have different things that they have to figure out what it is that works for them. When I started out, I remember Jane Eaglin was telling me how, you know, Wagner singers have to have a really good meal before they sing, because we sing for 6 hours. And so pasta is really good. So I was doing the Wesendonck later with Michael Tilson Thomas in San Francisco Symphony. And I had a bowl of pasta, because that's what you're supposed to do as a Wagner singer. Of course, it's only a half-hour song cycle, but I was going to do it right. And so I got to the theater and I fell asleep. And I realized I can't eat carbs. Carbs make me sleepy. So I eat predominantly keto. I eat quite low carb, and I do very, very well with protein and veggies. So that's what's best for me. If I have to sing the next day, I don't eat spicy. I don't eat a lot the night before. I don't drink red wine. I usually don't drink. I might have, you know, if it's something easy, I might have a glass of white wine, but I'm pretty careful not drinking around singing. And sleep, good sleep, and drinking a lot of water. So it's just like normal stuff. But for a lot of singers, they like carbs. I'm not one. Like for me, before an opera or a concert, I do great eating an omelet. That'll hold me through. So, you know, it just depends on the person. I also believe in exercise. Like if anyone works with me, if they have lessons with me or anything, one of my first questions is, what do you do for exercise? As a singer, as an opera singer, we use our body. We don't use mics. Some do, but we aren't supposed to. And so you have to really be aware of your body and the power that you need, you know, like I make people lay on the ground and lift up their legs and feel their lower abs. That's where your support is to come from. So it's really important to be fit and to have, you know, if you're just standing there like this, it's like, okay, you are not gonna do well. You got to jump or something. So I think exercise is really, really important.
Excellent. And that leads directly into the final question that I was going to ask you, which is your advice for young singers, whether it is those on the verge of, you know, thinking, shall I go for this, shall I not? Or those who are already in the middle of it, somebody pursuing a voice major somewhere and already getting ready for competitions, auditions. What will be your advice for them? How to stay strong and healthy and carry on with this?
You know, I think something I wish I knew at the beginning of my career, I think the most important thing is that your own opinion is more important than anyone else's. I believe that singers should record every time they sing. I don't care if they're rehearsing with the conductor. I don't care if they're singing in their living room. I don't care what they're doing. Record everything. Record everything and listen to it. And you decide if you like it. You know, if you go with a conductor that wants every vowel to be really, really bright, well, when you listen to that, that might not work for you. You might not like that sound. And when you go on the stage, the audience does not know that that conductor told you to sing all your vowels bright. And that's why you have no high notes. The audience doesn't know that. So all of a sudden you just sold out to please one conductor. it's a very complicated thing. You've got to be strong in this, and really a strong sense of self. You have to be your own teacher, and you have to be your own cheerleader. And as much as possible, not care what people think. It's very hard. I think that's advice for everyone in life. The more that we can look in the mirror and believe in what we're doing ourselves, the more I think we can be empowered in life. And when we give that power to all those around us, you know, how many times do we care what people think? And we don't even like the people. You know what I mean? And it's like so upsetting that person said that, and then, but you don't even think about the fact that you don't even respect that person. We have to all get our power back and not give it to people. You know, trust certain people, absolutely trust certain people, but we cannot just give away who we are to please people, because there's no end. You can't ever please people. So we have to please ourselves. Sorry. A very excited poodle, sorry.
That's lovely. And that is wonderful, really wonderful advice. Thank you for that. So
Sure.
I will take that as a perfect cue for ending this.
I'm so sorry.
No, I want to thank you so much for your time, Michelle. It's wonderful to chat with you about so many things.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Christian.
Thank
All
you.
the best.
All
Stay
the best
well.
to you as well.